You're on the Newsfeed PM. Thanks for staying on. Now, for this past week, at least in the last couple of days, we've been looking at this particular story of allegations of discrimination against black clients by financier Wesbank. Well, on Thursday, ActionSA lodged a formal complaint, they say, with the South African Human Rights Commission. It asked the organization to investigate Wesbank of allegations that it charged black clients higher interest rates compared to their white counterparts when purchasing vehicles. ActionSA's Lerato Ngobeni joins us now for more on their appeal to the South African Human Rights Commission. Lerato, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Tavo, and thank you to the viewers of Newsroom.
So it's a story, as you know, we've been looking at with keen interest. We spoke to one financial investigator who says he has actually, in 2019, made a call on his Twitter for people to come with information, at least relatively strong evidence of this allegation. He got 160 contracts. Out of those contracts, I think 50 were from black clients, and he found a disparity of 8.7%. Says took this information to the South African Human Rights Commission. Says on the first day of testimony, his water was spiked with arsenal. He nearly died. And he says they've done nothing to it. In fact, he says, as far as he's concerned, he's not going back there. He's now going straight to the South African Revenue Bank.
Yeah, so I know the story, and I've watched his interview, and it's correct. I was asked the same question when we were there the other day as to why we're taking it to the Human Rights Commission. The difference is, you know, when you speak and you're one person, like you're one whistleblower, it's very hard for you to be heard. We've seen many whistleblowers go through the same thing. And so now we're coming as a huge organization that is fighting in the same fight in this country. It reminds me of the Lily Mine families. You know, when they were fighting on their own, their voices were not being heard. And the fact that we have gone and somebody else who's slightly bigger, who's got a bigger voice in society, I think that it's our responsibility to do that. And so when the story broke, it's totally against the principles of our country. It's totally against the principles of our organization. And I think every South African should be appalled by this. We have seen a lot of the times it's mostly, you know, politicians who become under the spotlight for, you know, behaving unethically, for stealing money and so on. This is also tantamount to theft against black African people. And also, I think, you know, people who are trying to break through the ceiling and get into the middle class, like myself, it means, and I'm also a Wesbank client. So, you know, I also have to go back and look at, you know, my records and see, you know, am I being charged, you know, is there parity between what I'm being charged and somebody who's a white counterpart who has exactly the same profile as me. And so that's why we've taken on this fight. I think Mr. Van Zyl needed, you know, somebody else behind him. So we are following the channels. The Human Rights Commission has promised us that they will come back to us in about 14 days. We'll wait and see. If they do not, we'll take next steps.
What else have you done by way of maybe even testing some of these allegations? Have you reached out to the bank? Is that not the first place where you would have wanted to go?
No, so we haven't necessarily reached out to the bank. We've looked at the information that we have received as an organization. We reached out to the South African Human Rights Commission. As you rightfully said, this happened on Thursday, and so we still have another week to work on the story, to check out what is happening. We have called, particularly also in the organization, for people who are clients of Wesbank within our own organization to send us their information. As I say, I'm also a client, and so I'm starting with myself, and we will follow the story as time moves on. 14 days is not a very long time. If the South African Human Rights Commission doesn't do what they have promised that they would do, as we have asked, then we will take next steps. We have our legal team that will also look into the story. But I think that it's an important story for us to follow, and this cannot be allowed to happen. When corruption happens in the state and it happens in the public sector, in the private sector as well, it must also be challenged.
Yeah. I'm saying that because the bank feels, one, the investigator himself is throwing mud at the bank without verification. Political parties are jumping on the bandwagon. You're throwing mud at the bank without verification because they say, one, the allegations have no merit, they're unsubstantiated, and besides, they're factually incorrect when it comes to how they conduct risk assessment, which they say it does not include race.
You know, what is very curious in our country, it's very common that when people are accused of certain things, they never come out to say, actually, we were wrong. They never do. They always start with a no. It's expected that Wesbank will say, you know, this is not true. But we're putting it at their table. It's now back on the public in the public spotlight. They shouldn't hide. They should just come out and demonstrate to South Africans that they actually are not doing that. And that's all that they have to do. We don't have to have a lengthy process, as Mr. Van Zyl has spoken, says this thing has been happening since 2019. It's been happening for a long time. It's been a couple of years. All they have to do is be transparent and show us. If the allegations are not true, then they should just come out and say so. And then the story will die. People will move on with their lives. But if they don't do that, then they are causing us to be even more curious, to dig deeper, and we're going to do that. The bandwagon, if political parties are jumping on it, it's the right thing to do. If politics is supposed to be a voice for the voiceless, so if people say it's politicking, I welcome politicking if politicking benefits society. If it's just because, we're not just doing this because there's nothing else to do in our country. Yeah. Our country is an obstacle course. There are so many issues. But in terms of, black people and transformation of black people being able to break through the ceiling, but they can't do that if they are financially being discriminated against, it's totally appalling. And so that's what we're calling for the bank to come to the fore.
I understand going to a Chapter 9 institution to investigate the racial claim.
Yeah.
The hurdle that you're dealing with, though, right now is that you're dealing with a financial institution that is using a particular model that is technical in nature, right, to work out this rate. So the ideal place that you want to go to investigate, for example, is the financial conduct institution, right, those regulators, or go to BASA, for example, to investigate, because it would be a banking technical thing, even when the CEO tries to explain it as to how the model works. For a layperson, it's not something that is particularly clear as to actually how does the credit risk validation process work. Why go to the South African Human Rights Commission?
So as I've said, the issue that has come out, the one that is concerning to us, is that people are being discriminated against on the basis of race. And so the Human Rights Commission, for us, I mean, it's not like we woke up in the morning and decided, which institution are we going to go to? Oh, let's, pick on the map, let's pick that one. No, we're saying that the Human Rights Commission is the best place for us to start. The process will unfold. We're waiting for them to return to us. When they return to us and they say there's nothing we can do about it, then we will look to other avenues. We can't jump the steps. And we're saying that the financial expert said he had failed at the Human Rights Commission. He also started there. And so we are saying we want to know why they have refused to assist him. If they come back to us and they refuse to assist us, then we will take the next steps. Of course, there are so many different bodies that you can take this information to. The technicalities for us do not actually matter. What the bank needs to say is to come back and demonstrate that they have not been involved in such a practice. That is all what we are asking, and it's not a difficult thing, actually. It's not a difficult thing to check. If he was able to, on the information that he has, put it on the table, it's an IT expert. I can't wait to get to know what he has to say about how he uncovered this issue. But it's not us. It's a whistleblower who worked for the bank who came out and said, this is what is happening at the bank. We can't turn a blind eye just because the bank says that they are not at fault in this issue. We want them to come to the fore. We're not going to let it go. Like every other issue that we have taken on, we're not going to let it go. And so we have huge issues of inequality in our country. We have huge issues of racial inequality in our country. We still have racial hurt and pains in our country. We can't afford to have it institutionalized under our watch. We go to those banks, we use those services, and if in fact they aren't able to operate in the way that espouses, the values of our country, then they have no business being here at all. Wesbank is also linked to places like FNB.
The allegations of the so-called whistleblower? Have you verified the so-called whistleblower in terms of those processes and whether this indeed is a genuine former employee with a real cause?
So basically what has happened is that we have looked into what has been in the public domain so far. As I say, I look forward to having the whistleblower come forward. I do not know what his name is. We do not know what his name is. As you know, people who have blown whistles in our country have not felt safe. And so wherever that he is, the only person that we are currently, getting into touch with is Mr. Van Zyl, who's the IT expert, who's the financial services expert, and that's the only person so far. As I say, the story broke to us actually on Wednesday, I think it was, and so on Tuesday, and we wrote to the Human Rights Commission the very next day, and we went to the Human Rights Commission the day after that on Thursday. So the story is unfolding. There's lots of work still that has to be done in the background, and so we will do that as we go forward. In the new week, we will proceed with other measures that we can take to make sure that, you know, we reach the finality. If we have been incorrect, for whatever reason, we will come back, as we have in the public domain, and say we were incorrect. However, we are pleased to find out that the bank has not acted in this fashion. Yeah. If they have, then they also have to come in front of the South African people and also do the same.
It's interesting that you say that, because here's what the bank CEO says. He says we are sitting in a very unfortunate situation where unsubstantiated allegations, which in my humble opinion are factually incorrect, that's the CEO, have not been tested with us, may have caused us irreparable harm with our customers.
Well, I have not seen any interview by the CEO. I've only ever heard his retorts and the statement that you are reading. This is the way of life. I mean, if somebody accuses you of something, it's the same thing as if somebody accuses us of doing something wrong. We all suffer, you know, whatever damage that we get to suffer. I'm sure that the bank has got insurance. It will recover the PR nightmare that is here. If they were to come to the fore in a public platform like this and demonstrate that what they're saying is correct, then he equally is on his watch that he can make this story, you know, end as quickly as possible. But the longer that they protect, the longer that they deny, the longer that they hide behind the veil and be flippant. This is not an issue that you can be flippant on. Interest rates affect all of us. 18% that is being charged more for black clients than white clients, who must be charged 11%. How do they know that that white client is actually not doing better than I am? What is the measure that they are using? Because I could be earning much less with a similar profile, but because somebody just happens to have the skin color that is different to mine, they get a better interest rate than I do. That cannot be allowed to happen. And so it's incumbent upon the bank to come forward and to redeem themselves. And as we say, we are not doing this with any shame at all. We are going to represent the voices of people who don't have a voice. And so we absolutely have no issue. We don't take no issue with the bank as an institution. It's an institution that services, that employs our people. I said the same thing in another interview to say, you know, if you have a class action lawsuit, you've seen with people like Marcus Wiosta, who are able to lie to people for years on end, lives get impacted. If the bank, you know, something happens with the banking license and it gets revoked, so the ANC is asking for the banking license to be revoked, it impacts a whole lot of people, and who are also black, who work for the bank, who are there, who are tellers, who are there as, you know, professionals in the bank. If the bank ceases to function, then those people's lives also get affected. Yeah. That is not what we are looking for. What we're looking for is that we need a country that is ethical in its practice. We need a country that espouses the values of our Constitution. We are in a mess, and I don't think anywhere in the country that you go, in our country currently, the mood is somber, the mood is sad. We want a country that is thriving. We want to know that when we go to institutions, we should be able to trust those institutions to treat us fairly like they treat everybody else. Yes, we ended apartheid in 1994, but practices such as this remind our people that actually maybe it has not. And it gives credence for those who are very angry about what is happening in our country at the moment. And particularly black Africans, I'm part of, you know, that race. I'm part of a legacy of people who have been mistreated just based on their skin color. That cannot be allowed to happen in our country. It is 2024. My son is 18 years old, has never known apartheid. He will vote for the first time this year. Is he now going to be persuaded to vote because of practices like this? He's going to burst into the corporate sector one day. Are we saying to our kids that this apartheid issue is never going to leave us? Is that what we're saying? We can't sit back in the same way that we fought for this country to look the way that it does, for you and I to be able to occupy the spaces that we do. We have a responsibility to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. And that's why we are doing this. I actually, you know, through a colleague of mine, raised the issue within the organization, and that's why we're taking it up, and that's why I'm sitting here today.
Lerato, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. That's ActionSA, Lerato Ngobeni, joining us on that story.